with it. We're about having you to speak with a person who understands what you want to do with the drone and help you ask those right questions. And also talking about working out the data analysis piece now rather than later. If you're trying to work things out later with data analysis, then you're going to potentially get the wrong product or the wrong hardware up front as well. So that's where we're going to go through a little bit today to help you to avoid some of these mistakes. So first off, what we're saying is don't decide on a drone before you've defined your requirements. So what are these requirements? Well, let's go through these three parts here about what are you looking for from your drone mapping data? What is your budget? And what governance requirements do you have to comply with? So these are the three parts we're going to go through around defining your requirements. So what are you looking for? When you're flying your drone and you're doing that drone mapping data collection, what is it that you're looking for? What is it? How big is it? Over what area? Can you see it with your own eyes? And does it look different at different times of the year? So I've got a couple of examples here. And thank you to Javez for putting this up on his LinkedIn recently. And Javez is joining us here today. On the right-hand side there, you can see some coffee trees, and they're flowering. And they only flower at a certain point in the year, and those flowers are quite small. So thinking about what it is that we want to see with our data is quite different if it's quite small and only happening at a certain part of the year. Versus on the left-hand side there, these are some mangroves that are close to where we live here in Cairns. And this here is one part of the coastal ecosystem there. And it's a lot larger than just this one picture. It goes all the way up the coast. So how maybe we're capturing more than just this one area. So how are we going to do that? What does that look like? And in this case, we're looking for the dead mangrove. So we can actually see that from quite a way up in the sky. The other part is thinking a little bit about, can we see it with our own eyes? So on the right-hand side there, we've got some thermal data, and this user here from with the GeoNet data, they are looking at some hot and cold spots within roofs, looking for moisture hotspots. And so you can't see that if you're flying your drone up above with your RGB data. So we're using thermal data there. Or maybe you're looking for plant health, and that there is where multispectral data and what you might have heard with NDVI comes in. And so if you're looking at plant health, maybe you can see the brown of a dying plant, but maybe you want to capture it before it is fully dead. And so we'll talk a little bit about that there as well. So what is it that you're looking for? How big is it? Can you see it with your own eyes? And over what area? All questions that you need to be asking yourself first off and really starting to define. Next up, what's your budget? Now, we can buy drones as cheap as $500 for the Mini DJI Mini, and all the way up to $8,000 plus with the new Matrice 4 Enterprise. So there's a real range of drones from that 500 to 8,000 and everything in between. So understanding our budget is really important when you start talking to people about building the drone capability. But it's not just the drone you need to consider. It's also considering those additional batteries, SD cards, some training, some software, whether you're going to need some additional hardware. How precise do I need my data when I capture it? Do I need things like RTK, or is the onboard GPS of the drone sufficient? So a few things to be considering beyond just the drone there. And then the last part of defining your requirements is around some of those governance requirements. Now, here in Australia, we have our remote pilot license. In the US, there's the Part 107. And a lot of the time, if you're flying your drone here in Australia, you're probably flying under what's called the standard operating conditions. And these are those basic rules of don't fly closer than 30 meters to people, don't fly over the top of people, don't fly at night, don't fly higher than 120 meters. And generally, if you just want to stay within those rules, you don't need a remote pilot license. So maybe you don't actually need to go and get your license, but you need some other training to be able to understand how to use your drone confidently. If you do need to go outside of those rules, then you'll need pilots who have their remote pilot license, but you also, in Australia, will need the organisation to hold their remote operators certificate. And so there's a little bit of money and additional training and governance that you have to do to be able to fly outside of those conditions. Insurance is obviously another big one, and with GMADair, we have specific insurer who insures us for our drone risks and being able to fly our drones. So considering whether your insurer is covering your public liability side of things when you're out flying a drone as well. And then thinking about any other software integrations. What software are you using at the moment for some of your spatial data? And how does the drone data need to integrate in with that other software that you've got? So a few governance requirements to really consider there as well. Now, the next part is the drone. We know our requirements, but now we're starting to think about the drone. As we saw, we've got a range of drones from that $500 to $8,000 plus. And so understanding that not every drone is equal. Generally, the legislation around the world will talk about these different types of drones. We've got micro drones that are under 250 grams. And so we've got the mini drone, which is 249 grams. So it just fits in under there. And this means that it has less rules around where and how it can be flown. Then we have the very small drones. This is typically what most people are flying, whether it's the Mavic 2 or 3 or the Matrice 4 that's just come out. So most people will probably fly in something in the very small category. We then have the small category, and in the DJI world, this here is the Matrice 350. And this here has that gimbal that's got interchangeable sensors on it and all that sort of thing. So quite a step up in capability. Then you start needing to have your remote pilot's license to be able to fly these level of drones. And then you've got your medium category, which is more than 25 kilos. And in the DJI world, this here is your agriculture drone, your T50, your Agris drone for drone spraying, or your fly cart, those sorts of drones. So again, understanding where your drone fits will have an impact on what it is capable of doing, but also the regulations that you're flying under as well. But the big question here is, can it map? And is it compatible with a mapping mission planning app? Now, what you find in a lot of the drones, whether this here is on the DJI or the Autel drones, those enterprise level drones, is that they will have a large control that has a screen on it, and you can tap into an integrated mission planning app on it. You draw a polygon around the area that you want to fly, and the drone software then automatically works out what its flight path is going to be. You can then change the height it's going to fly at, and it does all of that calculation for you. There are some of the earlier drones as well that have the ability to use a phone or a tablet, and there are apps that you can download and do something similar. So first off, that question is there a mapping app that is compatible with this drone that I would like to buy? Now, sometimes there are not, and this here is because of the way that they have designed that drone, or maybe that drone doesn't have that capability built into the controller. You might look to something like DroneLink. So DroneLink is another software that supports a whole range of drones, so that you can use that third-party software combined with the hardware of the drone to be able to do that drone mapping. So that's fantastic. Okay, so we've got a whole range of drones there that are supported, but we've got a few there with crosses through them that say they're not supported. Now, why is that? So the reason for this is that DJI doesn't release its Software Developers Kit, or SDK, for some of its drones. And this here is a business decision that they make. And so that means that third-party apps can't make their app compatible with that drone for mapping. If that's the case, then there is another alternative, and that there is using things called waypoints. Now, the gold standard here is having that mapping app where you just draw a polygon and all of the flight plan is worked out for you. Waypoints would be that next step down where there's a little bit more manual work for you to do, right? There's a little bit more work for you to do to make sure that your flight plan, those lawnmower pattern back and forth, that those photos are going to be overlapping. So a little bit more work for you to do with waypoints, but there is a app called Waypoint Map that helps you do this. It is compatible with the DJI Mini 4 Pro, Air 3, and the Mavic 3 series. So if that's the drone that you can afford, you'd like to do some mapping, then you can start to use the Waypoint, but just knowing that it's going to be a little bit more work for you and not as simple as the mission planning apps. Now, the last point on this part is the Mavic 3 Pro and Classic versus the Mavic 3 Enterprise and the Matrice 4 Enterprise. Now, DJI sort of confused the market here a little bit, I might say, with their last Mavic 3 release. They brought out a Mavic 3 Enterprise series. Now that there is fully mapping compatible. It has the integrated app in it, and you can do everything that you want to do around that automated mapping missions. Whereas the Mavic 3 Pro and the Classic don't have that same capability. So if you're going into a shop and you want to buy the Mavic 3 series and you go, oh, I will grab the Pro, that sounds like me, you're going to be not able to do the mapping mission planning inside the app for that. You'd have to use the waypoints. So just something to really consider there when you're thinking about this. What DJI has done now is that they've brought out the Matrice 4 Enterprise. The Matrice series is going to be the enterprise level drones, and the Mavic 4 you will see coming out shortly. The Mavic 4 is going to be their cinematography, photography range of drones, and so not suitable for mapping. So you're going to see that split in the enterprise mapping surveying will stick with the Matrice series, and the cinematography and photography side will sit with the Mavic side of things. So just some things to understand there and where it's going. Now the next thing is to understand, well, which sensor should I choose? There's 4 probably main sensors that you're going to see on drones these days. So you've got RGB, red, green, blue. Probably what we're most often seeing around, it's like the Google Maps with the satellites, and when you go in and zoom on your house, you're seeing something comparable here. Then we're seeing thermal. So thermal picking up obviously heat, right? What's cooler versus hotter. Then we've got multispectral and LiDAR. And I'm just going to cross to Karen, and Karen's going to jump in here quickly and just explain a little bit about the multispectral and LiDAR.
Sure, thanks, Paul. I think one of the challenges that we see coming across with a lot of people that we work with is this feeling that you need to get the best piece of equipment or the best technology that's available to you, and often will then be sold into purchasing a LiDAR multispectral drone. I think one of the key things to remember is that the RGB drone, so the red, green, blue standard, so it sees what our eyes see, are super, super powerful and will always have higher spatial resolution, so a higher amount of detail in the imagery than the multispectral or the thermal sensors that are on the same platform or same drone. So the first thing for me is to work out, is there a problem with the RGB that's not being solved for you where you may need to go to thermal or multispectral? Thermal, to me, has a very clear use case. So if you are needing to understand temperature differences, that could be because you're looking for a particular animal out in the environment, you're looking for koalas in trees, for kangaroos out in a field, or perhaps you're looking at, in the case of the imagery in the top right there, you're looking for perhaps heat leaks or moisture as well. So thermal is a very, very specific use case where it is handy to use, but being aware that the best thermal data should be captured at nighttime or just before dawn. So that has governance implications and licensing challenges potentially there for you as well. Now, multispectral, I know, is something that people feel that they definitely want to get into. I would caution against using multispectral data. If you've never used multispectral before, I definitely think it's better to play with multispectral satellite data before you jump into using multispectral drone data. There's a whole lot of other complexities that are involved in multispectral drone data. And again, that loss of spatial detail that you otherwise get with your RGB data is really critical at the scales that we're capturing our data. However, there are some very specific uses where multispectral data can be helpful, and that's usually in the area around looking at vegetation health and sometimes in the density spacing as well. But definitely, if you're interested in multispectral, I'd love to have a conversation with you. It's pretty easy for me to convince you that RGB is enough in most cases. And the final one there is LiDAR. So LiDAR is typically used if you're looking at wanting to get really detailed digital elevation models, or you need to get the surface elevation below the tree height, particularly if there's dense canopies. Also really good for looking at coastal erosion. But in many cases, as long as there's not dense tree canopy coverage, photogrammetry that you can get out of your red, green, blue sensor will typically suffice for your needs as well. So I'm going to put a couple of links in the chat there to help understand and dig a little bit more into the technicalities of LiDAR and multispectral. But definitely, if you're interested in going down the line of capturing those type of data, please come and have a chat with us.
Thanks, Karen. Alrighty, and the last point of that I just want to make here is that software is just as important as the hardware, because you can capture all the data you want, but until you actually do the analysis and get those insights out, well, what was the point in capturing the data if you're not going to go down that path? So there's a workflow post that flight, and you need to consider this as part of your whole drone purchases. How am I going to organize, manage, and store my data? How am I going to process those raw images that I capture from my drone into the products that I want to produce to do the analysis on, that Author, Mosaic, and digital elevation models? And what tools am I going to use to analyze my data? And maybe this is where we sort of spoke earlier about what other software you've got to integrate that with, whether you're using the GIS already. But then how do I share this with people? Once I've done all that analysis and I've got some insights, how do I share my data easily with people that might be comfortable with using spatial data, but also stakeholders that might not be, and they just want to be able to click a link and see things? So can the software do all of this workflow for you in one easy workflow? Understanding that is really important. So do you want to go down an easy route or a hard route? It might not be as binary as that, but what we're talking about here is cloud-based. So Geonodia is one product that is cloud-based. We process that raw data in the cloud. All you need is that stable internet connection to upload your raw images. We do all the other powerful stuff of processing the Author Mosaics in the cloud. All your data is stored and organized in the cloud, so it's really easy for you to use. You can make it public or keep it private. And we have those tools to analyze and share your data, but it also makes it easily accessible for your entire team. So you're not relying on one person to be able to be that key holder for all of your data. On the other side, you've got desktop-based, so you've got DJI Terra, Agisoft, ODM. These software require their own high-performance computer to do that processing, right? So you need a computer that is often a lot more expensive than your standard desktop to do that. It becomes expensive to scale if you want to do lots and lots of processing. You also then need to work out a way to manage and storage your own data. Hard drives, this data is big, so that there becomes a little bit more challenging. And then sometimes you need other software to be able to do that data analysis as well. So there can be additional costs and learning curves there too. This data is big, and so it can be difficult to share if it's sitting on hard drives. It's one of the main things that we have wanted to solve and are solving with GeoMedea is making this data really easy to share with others who are both technical and non-technical in terms of spatial data analytics. So that there is, I suppose, some of those considerations around buying the right drone for mapping. And the big takeaway here is get the right advice from someone who knows what they're talking about, not just going into Harvey Norman or JB Hi-Fi and buying whatever it is off the shelf without that right advice before you spend time and money. Too many times we've had people come to us and say, we've just bought a fantastic new drone. We want to get into mapping. Can you help us? And I say, well, what's the drone you just got? Oh, the Mavic 3. Okay, is it the Mavic 3 Pro or the Enterprise? Oh, it was about $3,000 or $4,000, right? You've got the Mavic 3 Pro, you've spent the wrong money, but let's see what we can do for you. Too many times have I had that conversation. So please get the right advice before you spend time and dollars. And then really happy to have any questions for what you might have now. But also, if you would like some more personalized advice, then more than happy for you to reach out and we can have a chat as well. Alrighty, so if you've got any questions, please just type them into the chat box, or feel free to come off mute as well. And what questions might you have? We have got a few minutes. Whilst we're waiting, Karen, are you there? What's probably one of the things that you get asked a lot?
So many questions. I think probably the biggest, most heartbreaking one is people being really excited that they've bought the Mavic 3 and realizing that it's the 3 Pro, which sounds all pro, but it's not appropriate for mapping. And having to then try and say either, have you touched it? Have you opened it? Can you send it back? Can you get a replacement? So I guess that's probably the impetus for this talk as well. It's just to try and avoid people purchasing the wrong equipment in the first place. The next one is over purchasing. I guess, you know, if you can buy something for $3,000 instead of $10,000, then the 3. There's no need in many cases to buy the most technical drone that's out there. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get better results. And probably finally the last piece of advice that I would have is that purchasing the drone is really the start. And if you've never worked with geospatial data before, there is a steep learning curve. And we've got a lot of educational resources that are there to help you as well. But really invest in yourself, in that professional development if you need it, because otherwise the thousands of dollars that you spend on the drone actually go to waste if you really don't have the ability to extract the information out of it that you need to answer the questions that you're using for your job. And you'll be disappointed and say, oh, this thing doesn't work, or it's you know, they've been oversold, that sort of thing. So really invest in yourself to gain the learning that you need.
Cool. I haven't got any questions, but I would like, here we have got one. For the coffee trees example a while ago, that would be the solution if it's quite difficult to see or count them from above. Wait for them to grow bigger or put something near each tree to help the drone see them. Possibly, but what I might do is throw to Jabez here, who is on the call. Jabez, do you want to turn your camera and microphone on? Because that there was your data set that I shared. Do you want to maybe say hello? Thank you for joining us, mate.
Hi.
Really appreciate you being on here.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Karen.
What was it that you were wanting to do with those coffee trees? Tell us a little bit about that project.
Oh, sure. So I've been trying to map out coffee trees now here in our country, and I realized that coffee tree canopies are a bit difficult to see with the drone. So I realized I have to fly the drone lower to really see the canopy of the coffee tree. because from above maybe 50 to 80 meters altitude, the coffee tree looks like a blob. So it's not really good, unlike the palm trees or the other trees with more pronounced canopy structure. Coffee trees are like just smudges on the image. So I really had to fly lower, and I'm collecting these low altitude flights for AI training. So that's why I did that data set to train coffee detection for AI. So that's it. Thanks, Paul.
No worries. Stay there with us, Suez.
Yeah.
So have you sort of worked out what a solution might be if it is quite difficult to see them and you can't fly that low? Are you particularly interested in just the flowering or the identification of them as coffee trees, coffee plants?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm interested in the leaves because I need to identify different species of coffee. So also the fruit and the flower, because right now here in our country, it's both flowering and fruiting at the same time. So I'm interested in seeing that. So I'm working out the best parameters for capturing that on my data sets.
Cool. Now, there's one more question for you, because you are flying drones that are not the the Mavic 3 Enterprise or the Matrice 4, and you're doing some fantastic work there. I'll get Karen to find your LinkedIn and put your LinkedIn in the chat. You're definitely worth a follow. But can you sort of maybe just sort of pass on quickly your thoughts, what drones you're using and what apps are you using to really get some fantastic drone mapping data as well?
Okay, so right now I'm using a DJI Mini 4 Pro because it has the ability to do waypoint maps using the app that Paul shared earlier, waypointmap.com. So I'm using that. So he's correct. It's a bit clunky, so it has a learning curve to use it. It's not as straightforward, so you have to watch a tutorial to learn how to use that. Unlike if you're using an enterprise drone, it's just drawing a polygon on the screen. So that's one. Another drone is an older one. It's a DJI Mini SE. So there's no waypoint ability for that, but I do manual mapping. So I just set a 2-second timer on the camera, and then I just fly slowly to get my overlaps and side laps. So it would make do if you don't have a budget, and it's my first drone with a good camera. So I do those kinds of settings. So I think I just saw that from DJI forum, that kind of hack. So for my software, I use Waypoint Mapper, and aerialmodel.com for the 3Ds, and FlyPix AI for the object detection. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And yes, Karen's put a couple of links in there. Suez is well worth a follow on LinkedIn. She has a lot of very interesting stuff.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. Putting you on the spot there. I really appreciate it. All right, look, we've come up to 1 o'clock. If you have got any questions and would like to ask something, I will stick around. If you'd like to find a time for some more personalized advice, then please, I'll stick around, do it now, or please email me, and more than happy to find a time in my calendar. Thank you so much for joining. We are going to have another webinar coming up in a week, and that there is going to be Karen talking all about Geo AI and how it is changing the way that we are doing our segmentation and data analysis. So we're going to talk a little bit about Geo AI and the future of what it looks like. So be sure to check out your inboxes for that one coming shortly. Alrighty, thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording now.